to sing. Here I am singing. I have been told not to tag Sharon in. Say ah, 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 ah. Let's stop that there then, yeah. Hello, Sharon Boyd. Finally in the studio again.
I know, it's really nice to be back in here.
Oh, the sound quality is just so much better when there's two of you in the actual studio. So we are on part 3
of the CX mini-series.
Of the CX mini-series, which is a 10-parter. So we've done 3 and we're going to do 4, and then maths would deduce that we've got
6 left.
Well done.
Oi.
Well done. I wish I had a thing there to press to say well done, but
applause.
Yeah, I mean, I'll spare the listeners what I've got now on these buttons.
Yeah, please don't. There's all sorts of listeners you do not want to hear it.
Maybe at the end, depending on how far. No. We'll see what people get used to. So, as we said before, this is the mini-series. Sharon is going to read as she's sat here, for those of you who can't see, like a schoolgirl with her book on her lap, waiting to read her dissertation out to the class. What normally happens, as we've been doing before, is we'll read the chapter as it is wrote in the book. I believe, again, Sharon, let me just look over your shoulder. Yeah, there is the key takeaway, the MKLism, and then the main body, and then the call to action. This one is called
Say R.
And that's not R as in like a pirate.
Could be.
That's R as if you're going to a dentist and they say R. So we're not going to be swashbuckling. We're not plundering anything here. And Captain Jack Sparrow ain't going to come over the horizon somewhere and rescue us from an octopus?
An octopus? Where's that come from?
I don't know. That's all I could think of. So, Sharon, now for me, this is going to be quite an interesting one because there are 80 chapters in this book, and being honest, I can't really remember them all. We wrote this quite a while ago, and it's not as if I do what Sharon does and have it on her nightstand and read it every night as a Bible. So this one is a new one for me, so I'm going to be hearing this at the same time. Those of you who have never read the book before are going to be hearing it as well, because I can't really remember what this one was, although I do believe it's about patient experience.
That's right, yeah.
And again, that isn't patient as in you have to be patient with your partner. That's patient as in, oh, I'm sick, I'm not well. All right?
Yeah.
Okay, Sharon, I will be quiet. Over to you.
Thank you. This is from the book CX'y. You're CX'y and you know it.
Good, yeah. Plug. I forgot that.
Yes.
Yeah. I forgot that.
Which we wrote as a team. So we thought we'd share 10 of the 80 chapters.
But as a team, but only one of us has got a plaque on their wall at home.
And it's not the one that wrote the most.
Yeah, and it's not myself and Sharon.
That gives you a bit of a clue.
Yeah. God damn him.
Right, so this is page 112 if you want to follow along at home. If you haven't got the book, it's available from Amazon. Globally, actually. So, yeah. All right, so let's start with the key takeaway. Patient experience, the ultimate customer experience? Question mark, because that is a question that I'm kind of still playing with. Just going to move my mic a bit. Right, so MKOism. This is me talking now. I wrote this chapter. So last year, I needed to go for a minor procedure at the local hospital. I'm a pretty healthy person, and it hit home how many people had a whole different dimension in their lives, one where they spend hours, weeks or months in a hospital for one reason or another. The key elements that set this experience apart from standard CX for me are just fear and pain, which are pretty significant differences. I felt like I was giving up control when I walked through the door. With little to do but sit and wait for my name to be called, and to try and quell the dread, I reflected on the emotions of each of the other fellow patients around me. I don't know if other people do that, but when it was my turn, a lovely nurse met me. The first thing she did was introduce herself. I'm Wendy. When we go through this door, behind me into the treatment room, you'll find 2 other ladies and 1 man. We'll all introduce ourselves, but just so you know, all 3 of us ladies are called Wendy. She smiled at me then, and she smiled properly with her eyes. As she said 2 sentences, and already I felt at ease. She must have said that same speech. I don't know how many times a day, all day long. Yet for me, the first time of hearing it and her smile and humour had already brought me some comfort. She then took me through for the procedure, and she took me through the prep, left me to prepare with dignity of a second room. Once in the treatment room, one of the Wendy's held my hand throughout. She made jokes, mainly at her own expense. She distracted me in a very natural way while the others worked. I can't tell you how much I appreciated it. Afterwards, she debriefed me in a one-on-one way, talking me through all the next steps and reminded me that if I had any problems or questions, I could just ring the hospital and ask for a Wendy. At least 3 of them would come running. I walked out of the room feeling grateful. This lady had shown me something amazing, pure humanity. Onto the main body. I've thought about that experience a lot since then. It was nothing life-changing or dramatic, but it stuck with me. It pushed me to enrol on a fantastic patient experience course. I wanted to explore further into this deep world of raw human experiences. This book is all about CX in tech. There's an awful lot of tech in hospitals. But patient experience, that for me is CX on steroids. With patient experience, there's nowhere to hide. There's no gimmicks. At the core is people's lives and loved ones. Every emotion is already heightened. There's a lot to learn for me as a CX practitioner from observing patient experience. My own key takeaway from COVID has been the power of a human connection, both physically and mentally. And in those hardest moments of our lives, that is often what sees us through. Another human holding our hand, or gently explaining the results, or smiling as they tell a patient for the 100th time that week that they're called Wendy. It encourages me to elevate CX to stay real, to keep the human at the core of everything. It's one of the reasons I wanted to write this book. Tech can easily be a sector where the human gets forgotten as we build bigger and better systems, needing less and less human connections. I don't want that. Hence, this is my mission: strip everything back, build amazing human experiences, keep it simple, consistent, and then add the delight. Nothing too fancy, nothing false, just pure human to human connection. So thank you, Wendy, and Wendy, and Wendy. And the call to action: next time you're designing a customer proposition, a service, or a product, take a second to pause and observe just the pure human parts of it. You'll know you've got it right if it feels right when you live it out.
That's quite a difficult sector, isn't it, in terms of patient care, because it's very subjective. I mean, and you know, I don't mean like you've chopped your hand off and you're coming in and you're screaming in agony because you don't really care what's going on there. I wouldn't care if it was Wendy or Paul or Uggy Bear. I don't know. I won't care who it was in terms of that. But I don't like hospitals in general. I don't.
No,
I've never liked hospitals. I don't like the smells. I just don't like I won't even say it's so much the experience. I don't like going to A&E, and I would only go to A&E if my leg was falling off, like something really bad. But I've had to go to A&E with other people, whereas in my opinion, I don't think we should be sat there. But you don't say that to someone who's in A&E. Now, if there's blood gushing everywhere, then yeah, get to A&E. But if we sat there and you're going, I've put a nail between where your finger and your thumb join, that little bit of skin there, I won't go to A&E for that. I'd just pull it out and maybe I don't even think I'd go to see the doctor. I'd just wait to see if it got infected and then I'd deal with it. But where I get frustrated is if you do have to go to the hospital, and we need to be careful we don't get too political here, because the NHS is obviously under significant pressure. When we wrote that chapter, it was at the height of COVID as well. COVID hasn't gone anywhere, and you see the backlog of patients as in regards to that haven't been seen because of COVID. So hip replacements, things like that. What's their experience like?
It's Yeah, that's really stood out for me. Like you think about all the pregnant ladies who've had to go and have scans and found that there's been an issue, and their partners have had to wait in the car or be at home and not be able to be part of that, not be able to comfort their wife or whatever, and not feel part of that, and the woman being at home. And the same as if you just get told you've got cancer or something like that.
Well, isn't that what happened to Sarah Harding from Girls Aloud? Didn't she not go to a scan or miss a scan or something, and then
Because of COVID.
Yeah, they didn't get the opportunity to go and do it because it was at the height of COVID. Now, I'm not saying that is definitely the case, but that's what I read at the time. I believe that it was a combination of factors that meant that it wasn't picked up. But how is that solved through? Because it's a difficult one, isn't it? How is that solved through patient experience if the mechanisms it place to allow hospital staff to do what they need to do are already up against them? Because one, there isn't enough nurses, two, there's too many patients for the beds, and three, the infrastructure's creaking at the seams all the time. So what does that look like?
Yeah, and I think that comes back to that, before we were talking about end-to-end ownership. And you've got to do, whether or not it's putting in a new tech system or, opening a shop, or whether it's owning a certain department in a hospital. If you, exactly as you say, we're really stretched, but wherever possible, you've got to make sure that patients don't fall through the gaps. And if they've rung back and left a message on a consultant's answer machine or something saying, I need to change my appointment or whatever, and that gets missed, quite often you then get these situations where a patient is then missed, or something happens and they don't want to ring back, or they feel like they're going to be a nuisance. But there's lots of people, like you said, who don't want to go to hospital in the first place. They find that they have no control and they have to go. There's something too badly wrong with them that means they have to go. They've put it off for ages. They've built up the dread. There's long waiting lists. Even just driving to the hospital, trying to find somewhere to park and
getting
lost.
charged an absolute fortune to park as well.
Always, it's a nightmare, isn't it? And then you've got to walk all the way to the hospital, try and work out in the maze where to go. You've got the smells, you've got the sounds, you've got the screams.
And you just walk. I always used to find it fascinating how you can just walk. I mean, I don't know how it is now with COVID, but before COVID, you could just walk into a hospital. You're not really checked. You can just wander about.
Yeah. But when you do go through all of those emotions, because it just like, well, even more so, but just like with customer experience, the customer journey doesn't start when the person first walks through the shop door. The same, or even more so with a patient. You've got all of that build up of, okay, the letter's arrived. This is the date. How am I going to get there? Can someone drop me off? Oh, what's going to happen? Oh, I might have to fast, or what am I going to wear? All those things just add to that kind of trepidation of, oh, I've got to go into hospital. And it when you first get there, you've got to find that once you've found the right place and you've sat down and you've managed not to miss your appointment. And then if you're faced with somebody who's gruff or doesn't look up when you get to the desk, or tells you in the wrong place, all of that just puts your heart rate up. And that's before you've even had anything done or even had anyone looking at you. And then you've got the conversations with whatever doctor, you've got the jargon of it's this, it's that, you need this. And especially if you're having to do it on your own as well, whether it's through COVID or you haven't got anyone else to go with you, it's just fear from start to finish, because so much of it is out of your control. How often do you walk into a hospital and just then walk out again because you don't like it? You can't. It's not like a shop.
No. Well, and it's in some ways it is getting a little bit like that. My mother-in-law, she does 3 volunteering at reception at our local hospital. So she's the one that when you come into A&E, and you're an able-bodied person in A&E, so you might, like I said before, you might put a nail through your hand or something like that. She's the one that processes them. So take the name and the information and then logs them in, and then they'll sit down depending on the severity. And a doctor or a nurse will come and see them. But what she's saying, or what she was telling me last weekend, which was fascinating, is because of COVID, and because there's a big drive for virtual appointments with doctors, you know your local GP. There's a big drive for virtual appointments, and I get why you'd want to maybe do virtual appointments, a Teams call, a Zoom call, and things like that. And we know people are screaming out for NHS to modernise, and yet when they try to modernise, they get moaned at for modernising, going, I need to see someone. So I get there's a fine balance. But what she was telling me is that there are people turning up to A&E for things that they probably wouldn't even bother their GP with. But that is creating such a chunk of time that's being... Because they still need to be processed. They still need to be evaluated. And from an experience point of view, if I'm there with a genuine ailment and there's someone in front of me there because they've got a headache... or their throat's a bit sore or something like that, then go to the local pharmacy and get some strepsils and go home and rest.
Yeah, and that's why that triage part of the customer journey has got to be dead on, hasn't it? Because you've got to get it right to get those people that shouldn't be there to the right places, and everyone else who's got a genuine reason be seen through the system a lot quicker.
Yeah.
And talking about that, actually, I can't remember when it was, but earlier in the year, I had to go to A&E with my eldest son, and we were there. I can't remember how many hours it was, like 4 or 5 hours. And the team that were on shift when we arrived, there was one lady who was still on shift again, well, the entire time, and still there at the end. And we were sat probably as close as we are now to that lamp to her. And I was in tears because it was quite a big deal what was going on in our family at the time. And not once did she look up and check I was all right. She didn't acknowledge that we'd been waiting all that time. She didn't tell us how long we were going to be. My son just wanted to go home, but he needed to be there. And it was just a horrible experience. And it would have just the slightest little bit of acknowledgement from her about how long we'd been waiting. Are you okay? You can go and get tea from there. Won't be that much longer. Anything. I just needed a little bit of human.
And it's the right person for the right job, isn't it? Because take that scenario. There's a friend I've got, and she works on the high dependency ward at Jimmy's, which is just around the corner from here. And on high dependency wards, once you're on that ward, and this is, again, take COVID out of it, this is like serious accidents, and her job involves, I can't remember what they're called, but, putting airways into necks, seeing patients in extreme conditions, very graphic conditions. But if I was to describe her as an individual, would I say she had compassion, as in soft, are you okay? And she's not. She's very clinical, very... these are the wrong words to use, but I remember reading an article saying that to do that sort of job where you're cutting people's necks open daily and you're doing things like that, you have got to have some sort of psychopathic tendency within you. Not like you're going to go and Norman Bates someone.
Well, you've got to be able to switch it off, haven't you? Otherwise you'd break down.
Yeah, you've got to be able to... I mean, she told me stories about, farm accidents and, that involved young children, and the things that she did. I won't describe it on this podcast, but the things that she's describing and hearing the parents' reaction when they're seeing it is extreme as you can get in life. But she wouldn't necessarily say to them, do you want a cup of tea, do you want that? Because that's not what she does. Her job is very, very blue. I would describe her. She's a blue person, and if you look at the insights one that we just did, she's 100% blue-red. So this is the job. There's a neck. Cut that up and put that in. He or she's breathing now. Go away. That's it. And it sounds like in that situation, you probably had a bluey person there who was processing, but didn't really have that compassion side to say, "Are you all right? Do you want a drink?"
Yeah, maybe.
Because she was probably good at her job.
Yeah, maybe. But for me, I don't care who that
no,
person
exactly.
is or what she was another human. She was close enough to see the state of us, and she just didn't acknowledge it. And that little bit of acknowledgement would have made so much difference.
Yeah, and it's difficult, isn't it? Because if you sat on the other side of the coin, you could say, are you getting the care that you need? Is it a life or death situation? Is their life being saved? Has their life been saved? Do you really want your tap on the back, or do you want the fact that your life's been saved? I mean, and I would always say, well, yeah, of course I want my life being saved, but it doesn't hurt to add a bit of human compassion into that situation, just to say, are you all right?
Yeah. I mean, there was nobody else in the room at that point towards the end. All the other patients had been seen. There was us, there was her, and there's other couple of nurses coming in and out. And I just thought that would have made such a difference. So I think that's the key part of when that Wendy, I mean, she, as I said, she must have said over and over to people all day long, "Oh, there's 3 Wendy's," and but she
How many times has she said that?
Yeah, but she'd got her patter down so perfectly. It didn't matter. I mean, it didn't feel like to me that she'd said it every day. It felt like the first time, and it was that part of it that I remembered. The bit that I was so worried about was obviously the procedure, but that passed in a blur because I just remember her going, "It's okay, I'm here. I'll hold your hand. You can go in there. I'll talk you through every step. I'll do your debrief." She treated me like a human.
Yeah, because it's fascinating, that, isn't it? Because it's probably the 100th time she said it, but the reaction she gets back from you is like she's saying it for the first time because you're hearing it for the first time.
Yeah.
But let's put me in that situation that you're in there. I wouldn't want her holding my hand, saying everything's okay and all that lot. That's just not me. That's not how I respond to a crisis situation. It would be, what are the facts? What's going on? Give me somewhere to go and let me muse on myself. Leave me alone. Whereas if she'd have done that to me, I could have been having this conversation with you going, I had quite a bad experience there. I mean, I wouldn't
They've
have
got to judge it, right?
Yeah, I wouldn't have spoken negatively to her or about her because that's her job. But I'd have gone, yes, everything was okay, but it was a little bit too touchy-feely for me. But, I think the vast majority of people in that situation who are not absolute nutcases probably want to have that human experience.
And I think the Wendy thing, she was just trying to be, to kind of add a bit of
funny.
humour.
Yeah,
She's just trying to...
I mean, what happens if you shout Wendy?
In a hospital, well, she said 3 people will come running.
So now, it's not a good use of resource, that is it, NHS? Why don't you call them Wendy 1, 2 and 3, but then you got an argument about who's 1, 2 or 3. The best experience I had from a patient point of view, can you call it a patient when you're having a kid?
Yeah, definitely.
You class as a patient, would you say?
Well, it's patient experience, isn't it? Yeah.
Yeah. Was when we had our one and only child, Lucas, 7 years ago, Pinderfields Hospital in Wakefield, if anybody from there is watching. Fantastic experience. Now, it was, you had options, as in, do you want to have a birthing pool? I personally didn't want that because I didn't want to walk into a shark attack because I couldn't get my head around the things that was happening. And when I remember getting the call that Kelly had gone into labour, I was in London at the time, and she's in Leeds. So I got the call, and I was in Soho in London. So then I was with my boss at the time, and I said, I've had the call, and I wasn't going to go that day. And typical, I went that day, and why wouldn't she then decide, or he decided to come along then? So I had to go across London and then drive up. A funny story about that is I was driving up, paying attention to the speed limit all the way.
Obviously.
Of course. And then I'm driving up, and I got probably 5 miles out, and my dad rang me, and I'm going, I'm close. And he went, he's here.
Oh, no.
He's here. He's already here. And I went, no. And I was devastated. And he went, I'm only joking. I went, one day, I know you watch these, Dad. One day I'm going to get you back for that. 100%, I'm going to get you back for that. You might be on your deathbed, or I'm going to do it in your eulogy, and then we'll see. Yeah, because those words are forever. But when I got there, and he hadn't arrived, there was the midwife, and she said to us when I got there, can we have a student, they're called student midwives? Yeah, student midwife come in. Young girl, I think she was still at the university at the time, which is attached to the hospital. Can she come in because it's good for them to see a live birth situation. You can read about it in a book, but when you're there and it's happening, it's all going on. So I said I had no problem with that, but obviously it had to be Kelly that was saying it because she's laid there like
Everything out.
Everything's out, and I'm just saying she's airing things. I don't know what's going on. But I got there, and I come in from the car. I'm in the car going, but let's play a bit of music here, see if I can get this right. I'm in the car going.
Is that the first time we just used it?
There, driving up. Look at that, seamless.
Soundboard came in.
Driving up to Leeds, come out of the car, got into the hospital, and it's an attack of the senses. It's all going on. So she's already there. Things are out. Nothing's arrived yet. And I walk into this for the first time. And where this got really helpful for me, because I always thought that in a situation like that, I'd be quite logical. I'd know what was going on. I'm just stood there going, I don't know what do I do? Where am I going? What am I doing? And this is where that sort of experience comes into it, in terms of what this what's the head midwife called? I don't want to say
Sister.
I don't want to say maitre d'. What's the name?
Is matron or sister?
I don't know. Like, she was like old school midwife. Like, she must have been late 50s, early 60s. God knows how many kids she'd seen, and she'd seen it all. The dark blue uniform, and whereas everybody else had the light blue, the watch upside down, all that, loads of badges on her and things like that, and the really comfortable yet not very attractive shoes.
Oh yeah, rubber soled.
Yeah. But she came in and she didn't say these words, but it was almost like she went, right, chill out, yeah? Stand there, just hold her hand and just enjoy the experience. Now, normally when that's said to me, I usually fall asleep after about 3 seconds. But anyway, that didn't happen this time. But she's explaining to us. It's almost like when you watch a master do something. Like a wood carver, or someone who's blowing glass out. Someone who's blowing glass. But they're talking at the same time. Yeah. Going, I'm just going to... the Joy of Painting, the guy who does Joy of Painting. Do you remember him? 70s guy. Going, I'm just going to do a happy little tree here and all that. And he's going, how is he chatting to the camera and yet he's painting a masterpiece there? She was like that, going, right, this is what's going on here, Mark. We're just going to do this. And then, look, if you come and have a look, there's some crowning. I'm going, do I really want to look? Do I really want to look below the equator? I did. I looked.
Oh, you went there.
And you can't see those things. Now, I'm going to be very immature here. And people say, it's a miracle. It's a miracle of life. Baby boy coming out looking really gooey. And I'm going, that is a disgusting miracle. What is going on there? Why are things rising like a soufflé? It's just... Why is that happening? So she's explaining it all, and Kelly's on gas and air. I had a go at that. The midwife said, you can have some if you want. I did. I was having a great... I was orbiting Saturn after that. I was having a great time. And then, because of my sarcastic tone and the way I am, as Kelly's giving birth, I'm going, right, it's not all about you, this, is it? Why have you got to put on such a show? Oh, God, Kelly's showing it here. Look at you. It's all about him coming out, not you. Takes two to tango and all that. That didn't go down well. So, fellas, if you're watching that, don't do that. Don't do that. And then there was a big crescendo, and out he pops. And I'll never forget just as he came out and was put on Kelly's chest, he was like a white tub of lard. He was extremely gooey.
Yeah.
And I remember putting my little finger out, because his hand was sort of like crouched. I put my little finger out and he grabbed my hand, and I have never cried probably in my adult life ever. And I went, and a solitary tear came down. I looked at it and I went, get back in there. Get in there, what are you doing? And off it went back up. And I remember the look on the young student's face, because it was, I think that was her first birth.
Right.
So she saw that happen. But the moral of the story is, the way that she was with us was the senior midwife. It was just her lack of, not care, but her lack of severity of the situation. As in, It's like making a cup of tea for her. Calmed me down. Now she'd have been going, right,
Panic.
he's breached, get the forceps thing, salad tongs, rag him out and all that lot, and then they're off working on him and things like that. None of that luckily happened, but because it was just, I want to say, a standard birth, and he was out, he was put on Kelly's chest, then he was swaddled.
Yeah.
Oh yeah, he was swaddled, and then handed to us. I mean, if I'm being honest, and I'm picking what is a nice experience apart, it felt like from the moment he came out, and he was healthy and fine, they were desperate to get us out of that hospital. As in, right, he's fine now, go on, off you go. Now, bearing in mind that we've, as most people do, travelled to that hospital without another person to look after. And then now I'm driving home with another person to look after, and I'm doing 20 mile an hour in a 40, and I put him into, and I'm come through the door, and put him in his bassinet next to our bed, and cats are going, what the bloody hell is this? And they're having a right good old sniff. And then I'm paranoid about the cat laying on his face in the middle of the night and smothering him. And then all through that night, I'm laid there and I'm staring at the ceiling going, there's a human being there, like a vulnerable human being. And every little, or something like that, I'm going, he's going to die. What's going on? What's happening? And it was just, that was the only thing that was a little bit like, and I get it because they're going again, but to them it's just normal. It's like a sausage factory in it. Look, he's healthy, he's fine. Go on, get on with your life. You'll learn along the way. You're not going to kill them. They're fine. You make mistakes, and that's all that. But
that's interesting you touched on that, because we talked about before you go through the door of a hospital, you've got all this build up, but it's exactly like whether you've had an operation or a birth, you've got all the post bit afterwards, which when you're doing blueprinting in CX, you work through kind of the steps beforehand and behind the scenes, and you talk about who the main actor is all the way through. So whether that's the person you meet in the shop behind the scenes, the actor, which is so in your case it would be the midwives. But when you then go home, there isn't an actor. There's not. It's you.
Sure. And then you usually get someone coming round, as we had. Lucas was a little bit yellow.
Yeah, we had that.
But I remember. This is where the patient experience really fell down for us. So up until the point of having Lucas and going out of the hospital, absolutely fine. Perfect. But women, and if you're watching this as a guy, and you haven't had a child, or you're going to have a child or something like that, and let's say, like Kelly did, she decided to breastfeed. So she had to go through something which I didn't know was called cluster feeding. And that's where they feed every sort of like 40 minutes in the middle of the night. But it is exhausting. Absolutely agonising from the woman, so I've been told. I mean, things bleed and all that stuff goes on. It's really bad because you're trying to get them to latch. And then from my conversations with Kelly, she was saying, I didn't feel like I'm a good enough mother because he's not latching on. I can't feed him. I don't want to go to formula. Some people have to use that because they can't breastfeed, all this sort of stuff. Anyway, but then you have, I don't want to call them a midwife. Like someone comes round.
Lactation consultant.
Well, I don't even think they were called a lactation consultant. It was just someone from the NHS.
Health visitor.
Yeah, a health visitor came round. But because he was a little bit yellow and Kelly was asking questions about him latching, the way that she spoke, I mean, I wasn't there. I was working away. But I remember getting the phone call and her being in floods of tears saying the woman basically called her a bad mother. And I went, that's not great, is it? When your husband's working away, you're at home with a brand new baby, you've already got some concerns, and then you have someone who's a professional, in air quotes for those that are listening to this on audio, coming around and saying, you're a bit of a shit mum there, what are you doing?
Well, mothers are so sensitive at that point anyway, aren't they?
But where's the patient care?
The slightest little thing they're going to take. You've got to be so careful with what you say. Yeah, I can't think what it is that a health visitor, is it? I can't think what it is. You're right. There's a term for the person who comes around after your birth. My one, when I left, it's exactly the same. It felt thrown out of hospital.
Yeah.
As soon as you were ready to go, and I had a 48-hour birth with both my two.
48 hours.
Well, they were both big babies, and I'm quite small. So
hang on, let's do this then. So I was, and this is why my mother probably loves and hates me. But I get told this every Christmas, by the way, the story. And I'm on about, like, in detail how they had to cut her, which is always nice to hear when you're about to serve some turkey. But I was a 10-pounder. What were yours?
So James was 9 and Matthew was £10.4. And I'm only 5'2". That's
£10.4.
£10.4.
Did he when he came out? Here we go. Did he say this to you?
Barely 2 words in, and you already look like you want me dead. You're getting all worked up over nothing. You changed. You're getting weak.
Yeah. So by the time I'd had a 48-hour labour, and they give you their bit of burnt toast, and you queue up for the messy shower. I was quite pleased to go home, to be fair, but it was like, get out. When I got him home, I looked at him and thought, something not right. He was not breathing properly, and he was very yellow. And I rang him up and said, I want to bring him back in. And they said, ooh, okay. When we took him back in, they said, yeah, we need to do a chest x-ray straight away. So he's 1 day old, already having a chest x-ray. And they said he had this certain disorder, which we had to go through with consultants. So I ended up having to stay in there for an additional week.
Wow.
And they said to us, it's really good that you picked it up, because you wouldn't have seen the health visitor or whatever it was for some days. He could have died.
Whoa.
So for me, I was like, oh, okay, that's quite a big deal. When I stayed in there for a week. But when I did eventually get home, I was so pleased to be home. Because my eldest had just started school. We had to start school first day of 5 without me being there, which I found quite difficult. Yeah. But yeah, I can't remember what it is, health visitor. When she came to the house, she looked really nervous, and she said, is that your car out there? And I said, well, one of them's my car, yeah. And she went, all right, which one is it? And I thought, why are you talking to me about my car? Look at my child. She went, okay, all right. And she looked really shifty. Anyway, when she left, wasn't for a while, I then realised when she came around, she'd actually crashed into my car, not mentioned it. So not great from a patient experience at all. But that's why she looked so unfocused.
Why did she just say?
Well, ridiculous, wasn't it? She should have just gone, I'm really sorry.
I've just bumped your car.
Just bumped your car. And I'd gone, all right, let's have a quick look. All right, but now can we focus? Because all I was thinking was my child, who have just got out of hospital.
I mean, inarguably, it'd probably been the best time to tell you, because you'd have gone, I don't care.
Yeah, look at my baby.
Look at my kid first, and then we'll sort the insurance details out later.
So, but then with James, I had similar to what your wife had, because I took him to a health visitor to do the the basic sizing checks and all that with the red book, and she said, "Ooh, a little bit worrying here. I can't feel his fontanelle." So that's the soft.
Oh yes. I don't like that. That's weird. Is that? Very weird.
For anyone listening who's not aware of this, when a baby's born, all their plates in their skull aren't fused yet to allow their brain to grow.
But you can see
see it pulsing
heartbeat when they're.
Yeah. Now she was saying to me, James doesn't have a fontanelle, which means that possibly all the plates have fused in his skull, which means his brain will not have room to grow. Oh dear. Which will cause brain damage. Yeah, and she just sort of landed that on me. And I was like,
just letting you know this.
Yeah. So she said, and I was like, how do they fix that? And she said, well, what's it called?
Surgery.
Yeah.
Brain surgery.
Yeah, brain surgery. So I was like,
like cracking an egg.
Yeah, basically. So I got straight out of there, rung the surgery, and I got this computer says no. And I think we mentioned this in the book actually somewhere else. Completely computer says no woman. Second I spoke to her, I said I need a doctor's appointment. Before I hadn't said what it was about or anything, she went, I can't get you in for months. And I was like, well, when can you? It must be at some point in the future. No, you'll have to try another day. I'm like, what? Yeah,
I've got a potentially very serious situation here with my child. I mean, and it's right what you say, isn't it? Because any new mother's like a mother bear, isn't she? Yeah. Anything negative you say across their kid, then God forbid. But then if there's anything wrong with your child, then I mean, a dad's love is a dad loves, but you've never seen anything like a mother's love. That's different. I mean, my mum still treats me as I'm 40, and she still treats me like I'm 10. Yeah. Give my little presents. Yeah. Well, she what about my bum though? Yeah.
Well, I should hope not. She's done enough years of that.
There's in time for that, isn't there?
But yeah, I do remember talking to that lady, and when she was like, she obviously couldn't care less. And I said to her, look, I've just been told my child might need brain surgery. And she was like, sorry, there's nothing I can do. And I put the phone down and I dialed someone else and thankfully got someone who I didn't even need to explain. I just said to her, I need to get a doctor's appointment, GP. And she was like, okay, I can do it on Thursday. And I thought, it's the same surgery. She's obviously sat next to her, first person. But
she'd have been a person that would say, that's what the spreadsheet says, and that's my line. I mean, how many reception doctors do you ring? And I remember saying to one of them, oh, I'm sorry, I didn't know I was actually speaking to the doctor because they're diagnosing me over the phone. I'm going, where's your medical degree?
I know.
Did you spend 4 or 5, 6 years longer in medical school, I want to say, to be able to say, nah, don't come to... I mean, the last time I went to the doctor, I think I wore... oh, God. I think it was when Lucas was about 2. So it's going back 6 years. And it's because we were going on holiday and I think I perforated my eardrum. So I went because we were obviously going to go swimming and stuff like that. I just wanted to make sure. Other than that, I've never been.
Yeah. Well, it's no wonder, is it? You have these gatekeepers who stop you going in the door.
But
like
see,
this lady.
Yeah, but it's not so much it's not the fact that I don't want to go because it's the gatekeeper. It's the fact that I don't know if anybody else is watching this or is out there, but you know people who will go to the doctors at a drop of a hat.
Oh yeah.
And then you know people. I'm this person.
His arm's falling off, and then they'll be coerced
yeah,
to go.
I won't go to the doctors unless I pass out and someone takes me, or if I go, oh, I should probably go, and that's when my foot's hanging off or something like that. I won't go because not that I don't feel a burden, but I just go, well, just your body is a fantastic thing. Now, this isn't to say that if you notice any changes in your body or anything like that, obviously you should go get them checked out, all that stuff. I'm not saying that, but I'm more of the big stuff, like if you ever fall or something like that, at my age anyway, I'm not like if you're 80, but if you're 40, and if I fell down the stairs walking out of this office now, and it'd hurt, but I'd know if something was badly wrong. I don't know why. You know your body better than anyone else. I would just know, but I still wouldn't go. I don't know why. I just wouldn't.
Yeah, no, I'm in the same camp as you.
I just wouldn't go.
I didn't get that.
That was
Siri doesn't want to go to
that was my watch saying I didn't get that. Should we bring it to an end?
Yeah, because we could talk about this for hours, I think.
Should we put some music on and play the little outro?
Go on then.
We're going to do that. Are we going to sing this time?
You are.
I'm not gonna sing. I didn't expect to talk about stuff rising like a soufflé. I'm gonna go home and not eat because I've seen stuff now I'm remembering. Have a good day, everyone.
Bye, everyone. Have a great week.